Namaste, I'm Himali, and welcome to the Bhagavad Gita Actually, a conversation from within a lived battlefield. Today we're discussing chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. Namaste, Avanti.
Namaskar. As always, let's start with a short invocation. Om Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Krupa Tamaham Vande Paramanandamadhavam. To that grace which enables a mute, dumb person to become eloquent, to that grace which enables a lame man or woman to scale mountains, to that grace which Advaita Vedanta says is you, is me, to that grace I bow.
So today we're gonna discuss chapter 1. And truth be told, the first time I read chapter 1 was a couple of months ago, because as I was learning, I had heard and I was told that the learneds and saints and they translated the verses from chapter 2, and sometimes not from the beginning of chapter 2, maybe verse 11 or 13. And let's not go over the story, but dwell into the Bhagavad Gita and the teachings. But what I discovered by reading and actually going through the chapter 1, that realized that, again, we're talking about this battlefield that is going on within us, battlefield that's going on around us, in our family, or in a community, countrywide, or even outside globally right now, we're seeing, and how it relates so much to that chapter 1. And I really learned that you can learn so much from that. So, first of all, when I started reading, the name itself, it's called Arjuna Vishad Yoga. So, how do you have Vishad as sorrow and yoga together? And also to ponder upon Arjun, who we all know as this great warrior who is so learned, but yet he is going through this upheaval within himself. But even to begin with, I was very surprised that Bhagavad Gita, even chapter 1, didn't start with Arjun or didn't start with Krishna, but it started with Dhritarashtra saying something. So can you please talk a little bit about, first of all, the name of the chapter, and then, a little bit on that first verse of chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita?
So your excitement is pretty evident and
Yeah.
it's completely valid, because what you say, that a lot of times, a lot of teachers, a lot of Gita classes don't even touch the first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
That is the absolute truth. In fact, what shocked me completely was Bhagavan Sri Adi Shankaracharya himself, who is the perennial source of the lineage that I belong to, has not commented on chapter 1 and the first 10 verses of chapter 2 at
Yeah.
all. In fact, even he begins his commentary with Krishna speaking in verse 11 of chapter 2. And the reason why he must have done it is he knows the human problem. He's well versed with the problem and he has the answer. Whereas for us, hand on our heart, we are not even aware of what problem we have. The kind of world we live in, we just go out for coffee and we are absorbing everybody else's problems, a conversation we've overheard, something that's not even related to us. What I famously say, it's not even on our Janam Kundli. It's not even on our horoscope that we have to deal with this. And we are bringing it all in. So, chapter 1, I would say, is the most quintessential chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And when we teach our classes, we even go to the story, the entire story, which we went over in the introduction very briefly. That requires an entire different series of classes altogether because there's so much to learn from it. So unless you understand the context, unless you understand the problem, how are you going to even relate to the solution? And most importantly, you're not holding the Gita in your hand to understand Arjuna's problem. You are trying to understand what is your problem and how do you solve it. So for many, many very enthusiastic and more importantly, I would say astute students, they are able to kind of at least begin to hover around what their problem is. Of course, it takes the entire Gita to understand who you are, what you are, where are you stuck. And it requires a lot of patience. It requires 18 chapters, 701 verses, without a doubt. I mean, think of it. Arjuna was there with an impending battle in front of him. In that, Krishna chose to pause for such a long time and explain the Gita. So we hopefully do not have such a huge battle right now in front of us. We have all our little battles that we've compounded and made so big. So we need to have that patience to go through what exactly the problem is. There's a very famous thing that said that whatever happens in the world, whatever happens in the world, you talk about even test tube babies and surrogacy and all of that has happened in the Mahabharata. And what has not happened in the Mahabharata will not happen in the world. So you have to understand the context. You have to find yourself in that great epic. Where are you? And especially, there's Ramayana as well. But especially Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, it brings it down to our daily life, exactly how it's playing out. So very important to be with the first chapter. And it teaches us a lot. The second question you asked about the name. So the name of the first chapter is Arjuna Vishad Yoga, the yoga of Arjuna's despondency. And very valid question. Yoga means to unite. When you talk about yoga in Vedanta, it means to unite with your highest self. That is what the whole practice is about. That is what the whole text is about. We discussed this in the intro episode, where we have a body, we have a mind, we have an intellect, we have the causal body that is causing our births over and over again. But beyond and all of that, we are the eternal self. So the entire study is to bring all of those material aspects together and recognize its true identity. Right now, our body, our mind, our intellect, and our desires, mind you, separately, are pulling us in all directions. And most of those directions are nowhere near the agenda of even your subtle body. That's the sadness of it all. We will study this as we go along. So yoga means that union with the higher self. We understand yoga as standing on the head, twisting, pranayama, and all of that. Yoga, as far as the Bhagavad Gita goes, is anything that you do with your body, anything that you do with your mind, anything that you do with your intellect, and everything that you do with who you are, your inherent vasanas, the very fabric that makes you, if you're doing it toward that goal of realizing who you essentially are, you are a yogi. Somebody who cannot even touch their toes is a yogi if whatever they're doing with all their material equipments are moving towards that union. So, right. So, why is that union then clubbed with this word as Vishada, sorrow, despondency, dejection? This also we discussed in the intro, that we come to spirituality with for four reasons generally. Quickly to go over, we either want something more from the world, and all our tried and tested methods aren't working. So, beti ki shadi kar do, get my son a new job, hold my marriage together, whatever it is. Or it is grief, a huge shock that comes to you. Or it is curiosity, and now really this particular reason, everybody's doing Gita class. It's like I do Pilates, I do matcha. What's next? I do Gita. So it could just be that. Or it could also be like, you know what, I really want to explore. It could be both ways. And the final, what Krishna says is, you come just for me. And like you said, is that destined? You asked in the intro episode. You have to be that person who comes to spirituality only to want that union. You have had to go through multiple lifetimes and understood internally that there is nothing in this world for me. I've experienced the height of sorrow, the depth of sorrow, the height of joy, and everything in between. And there's nothing in there. There's nothing left in there. And as Krishna says, that happens after millions, many, many lifetimes. Bahunama janmanamanti. Do we feel despondent about that? No, no, no. We don't. Now we have knowledge, so that phase can come faster for us if we pursue it, right? Now, amongst these four reasons, if you really, Himali, you are in the healing field, you are a healthcare practitioner. Above and all, you are a death doula who sees the biggest sorrow through, you see. So I'm sure you would agree with me that grief does come forth as the number one reason as to why people would come to spirituality. It's when I look around, I always see, in fact, there's a funny saying that I heard the other day: all rich, depressed people are sitting in all the satsangs. Because money can't solve your grief, can it? It cannot. And it's interesting that this is a very sweet anecdote that always I hold close to my mind, is that Kunti, the Pandava's mother, she goes up to Krishna one day and she asks Krishna that, keep giving me sorrow, one sorrow after the other. And Krishna was like, every single person comes to me for joy. They want to run away from sorrow. And she's like, only when I'm in deep sorrow do I remain so close to you. When there's no sorrow, that distance increases. And see for our own selves, whenever you are a healer, and I'm sure before you became a healer, you have gone through a lot of healing done by other people.
Absolutely.
Now be honest, put your hand on your heart and ask, tell me this. Every time you approached healing, there was one major problem that got you there. You went through the healing process. You felt better. The minute that was done, oh, I'm fine. Let me go off on my own. Until something else hits, and then you're back. Or it could be the same thing that is not really fully healed, because to heal something, you need the 18 chapters, 701 verses, and many, many years. You understand? And that's called smashana vairagya. Smashana vairagya means where you understand this, you renounce the world and seek spirituality just for the time when the funeral pyre of somebody is burning there. But the minute that is shant, and as time heals all, you're back far away. So there couldn't have been a better suggestion to us than the title of this chapter 1. Arjuna Vishad Yoga. What brought the Bhagavad Gita into existence was deep grief, deep despondency, deep sorrow. But let that sorrow not be appeased with a Panadol. Once I've gone through Bhagavad Gita. No, no, no. Let that sorrow be the initiating reason why you've come here. And then you hold that, even if the sorrow passes, because rest assured, in this life, sorrows are going to come.
Yeah.
At the heel of every joy, there will be a sorrow. You see, whatever we chase. So why keep coming back and starting from A for apple, B for ball? Sit with it, right?
Yeah.
You sit with it and draw it out till your problem is solved. So that is why the chapter is titled Arjuna Vishad Yoga, the yoga of Arjuna's despondency. This grief that I'm feeling now, I don't come to the Bhagavad Gita to appease it for now. I have come with this grief and I'm going to transmute this grief into the union with the self.
Mm.
And that is what my resolve is. If a person comes with that resolve, not just to Bhagavad Gita, to any path of spirituality, then and then only will there be evolution. Otherwise, you're stuck through lifetimes, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, in that particular phase. Any questions, any comments on this?
No, I love that. And yes, when you're healing, it's like there are layers and layers and layers of that hurt or trauma. And sometimes all of it doesn't come up at one time. You resolve it, you think you've resolved it, you think you've gone in and everything's come into awareness and you worked with it and you've let it go, you've done all the release work and everything, and you're going about your happy self, and boom, it could take, a few months, it could take a year, and then the same thing repeats. There are triggers also in our life. Somebody says something and you go back to that. So it's like, wait a minute, I already did that work. Why is this issue coming up again? And, that again, so it's like there are layers. Now you're ready to resolve deeper into that. And it could be so many layers that happens. And so, and I love the way you explained it. So let's start with talking about the first verse. And I don't know, can we go and ask why does it start? Do we know why does it start with Dhritarashtra?
Okay. Absolutely. You can ask whatever you want. And together,
Yeah.
we try and find out
Yeah.
why it could be.
Yeah.
See, the whole point of this podcast is to make it very relevant and very relatable. There are tons and tons of podcasts, classes, all of it
Yeah.
right now floating around with teachers who have dedicated themselves to this subject. But the point of what we are doing is that we try and see whatever we are struggling with, can we connect it to the Gita? Okay, so please just ask whatever. If it can't be connected, we go see our therapists.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So, verse 1. Before we get into verse 1, let's just see how this chapter is divided.
Okay.
So, every chapter has various number of verses, and there is a clear division of the flow of the chapter, of how it goes. So, let's see how it begins and ends, just to begin with, and then we can go to verse 1. So, chapter 1 begins with Dhritarashtra's question. It's interesting that this is the only time that he has spoken. And what is interesting is that he's been given the first verse of the Gita.
Yeah.
And if you look deeply into it, Dhritarashtra symbolizes the blind mind. We spoke about this a little bit in the intro, I think. But the mind that is the seat of our emotions, of our desires, of our likes, of our dislikes, is the mischief maker or the messiah of our lives. If the mind is not blind and under the absolute care of the intellect, it becomes our messiah. It becomes our savior. If it is blind, born blind, which unfortunately for most of us, we are born blind-minded. And that is the samskaras of many, many lifetimes. It's only when knowledge steps in that one fortunate lifetime that sight starts returning. You see? So all our problems are because the mind is blind. If that first verse did not begin with the blind mind speaking, I am, tell me, there's confusion in that verse altogether, anyways. There's fear. There's so much if you go deep into it. Unfortunately, we won't have the time to completely unravel it. But if it didn't start with that, the entire Bhagavad Gita would not make sense at all. And if you go back to the Mahabharata story, what's interesting, so you have to bring in context all the time.
Yeah.
The mind is blind. Human beings are the only species who have been bestowed with a body, with a mind, with an intellect of two kinds, the Sukshma Buddhi, the subtle intellect, and the Tikshna Buddhi. Think about the scenario that stands behind the Mahabharata war. Mind, as we said, is born blind. But there is an intellect also in us. And how bizarre is it? The intellect voluntarily decides to blindfold itself. Intellect is represented by Gandhari,
Yeah.
who is supposed to hold that blind man's hand and grant him vision. So, this is why the Bhagavad Gita starts with Dhritarashtra speaking, the blind mind speaking, because everything emerges from that, our whole samsara that is not going towards that goal of self realization. And it all boils down to showing us that until the mind can see with the torch that the intellect is showing, you are not going to go anywhere. Now, coming back to that first verse also, what is said in that first verse? It's important since we said it's so important. Dhritarashtra said, assembled on the sacred field of Kurukshetra, desirous to fight, what did the son of Pandu and mine do, O Sanjaya? So he's speaking to Sanjaya, who represents the wise witness, the Sakshi. When we are in court and we have called as a witness, we can't take sides. We just narrate the truth, the experience. Even the Sakshi knows who's right and who's wrong. And there'll always be an undertone to make the jury go towards what is right. But they're just narrating as objectively as possible. So, assembled on the sacred field of Kurukshetra, it is very interesting to see that they're calling the battlefield
a sacred ground.
So the Bhagavad Gita begins with Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. What does that itself mean? The human experience has been gifted to us as a field of dharma, as a possibility of conscious evolution, to stand on the side of the right, to lift ourselves to the highest possible versions of ourselves and evolve from this life better, not bitter.
Yeah.
But what have we made it with our blinded mind that has no respite and a intellect that's blindfolded itself with its own will and volition? We have turned it into a bloodied battlefield.
Yeah.
And it's dramatic. If we look at our lives and we look back, you'll see blood splattered all over our own lives. Wrong decisions, wrong mistakes, it's just, some will say, oh no, this is the way you evolve. Okay, fine, you can evolve that way if you want. But when Bhagavad Gita steps in, rest assured, if it seriously steps in, it's giving you that opportunity. Look, you don't have to kill and be killed. With knowledge, you can rise. So that Dharma Kshetra, it's supposed to be a Kshetra. Kshetra means field. So it's supposed to be a field of evolution. But because of our complete investment in the blind mind that has no direction and no dimension, we have turned it into a battlefield, a devolutionary battlefield, not an evolutionary one.
Yeah.
And then look at the Dhritarashtra's words.
Yeah.
Those sons of Pandu, you see, mine and theirs.
Yeah.
Another huge thing. If you look at life as it plays out within families, within societies, within nations. Look at what is happening right now.
Yeah.
The wars, me and them. So that immediate separation.
Separation.
Sanatan Dharma is saying Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Forget that the world is my own whole family. The Bhagavad Gita, from the tradition that I study and teach it, is saying that there is only one Brahman, only one Atman which is within you and within me. Until we recognize that, we are going to see these separate bodies that are either getting along with each other or annihilating each other. So, Dhritarashtra, you are seeing the source that so many problems, in fact, all religion, socio-economic, everything, just look around. It starts with me and them.
Yeah.
So he's saying immediately distancing. That is one thing. Second thing is he's saying how, completely oblivious is this mind.
Yeah.
He is the one who has the power to stop this war. He is the one, if he lifts his hand and says, Duryodhana, stop it.
Yeah.
We will not fight. And he is blaming the Pandus, children, Pandavas, that they are desirous of fighting. So this human tendency to point the finger outside, this is what completely shakes up anybody's understanding.
Yeah.
So that is another thing. And then he's asking the wise Sakshi, tell me, another big lesson I draw out of this is why therapy doesn't work. Because the blind mind has already made up its mind.
Yeah.
It's going to go like this. Why do we go to therapy? Please assert and affirm whatever I'm thinking is right. Sanjaya has tried throughout to highlight what is good, which every therapist will do, and try to dissuade him, to show him the mirror. But no, at no point does he say, I'm not going to let this war go ahead. So he's asking not of the Sakshi what is right. He's saying, narrate it as is, and I'm still not going to move. So it brings us back to that other very important thing, whether it's therapy or whether it is spirituality, without purushartha, self-effort, that is imbued in honesty. This is who I am. I'm seeing this reflection as clear as day. Can I change it? If you can't, you're just wasting $200 an hour. I don't know what it is in the US, but it's a lot over here. You're wasting that money.
Wow. I'm still stuck in that blind mind. And how true. I just have to sit with it. It's like when you said, like, I had goosebumps all over. And I just have to breathe it. And even when I read that first translation, like it felt like when he was talking about his son, like it seems like he's so proud of them for even being there.
Actually, when you look at it, there's again a blind arrogance when he says, whose desire is to fight with me, with my sons. But if you can really read between the lines, there's that fear.
Yeah.
That we, see, when you are doing wrong, there is that conscience that is pricking. And in that conscience, you try to puff yourself up. To try to affirm, yes, what I'm thinking is right. So you see that very clearly. So it comes across as pride. And actually, that is what scares the good.
Yeah.
If you see all people who are doing wrong, the first thing they're projecting is pride. I know what I'm doing. But underneath that is actually fear. And if you are on the side of good, I implore myself and everybody I speak to, don't let that frighten you. Don't let that bullying stance of, oh, I'm so powerful and you mean that. Because truth, it's so funny, right, Himali?
Yeah.
Truth always doubts itself.
Yeah.
And lie struts on with this false arrogance, though it's being battered from the within. And that unfortunately scares what is true.
Yeah. Wow. And then as we were talking about the division of the chapter itself, then there are so many verses that Duryodhan goes on about his arrogance and how proud he is of who he has on his side. And can you share something with that and about that?
So when we look at the Bhagavad Gita, first thing we have to understand quite clearly is this is symbolism.
Yeah.
Okay. The entire Mahabharata story should be looked at as symbolic. Did it happen? Did it not? I believe it happened because I went to Kurukshetra and
Yeah.
I really ask every person interested in the Bhagavad Gita to visit that site with full reverence. It kind of clicks everything in place. So when we talk about the Kauravas and the Pandavas, they are basically the Kauravas represent the, can I say evil? Okay, let's just say evil. Evil tendencies in us, the black swan within us. Okay. And the Pandavas, they represent the good tendencies, the noble tendencies, the white swan. Now, anybody living over here on planet Earth, if they say, I am all white, take it with a pinch of salt. As human beings, we are a necessary admixture of the good and the bad.
Yeah. And the
The
uglies.
and the uglies and the indifferent, one that
Yeah.
is not even connected, everything.
Yeah.
And the entire point of human existence is to make the white swan all important in the driver's seat, helping you to evolve.
Yeah.
And if you go to see, we are wired that way. The negative tendencies always seem louder. Like I just described now, when you said Dhritarashtra, he's so proud. So it is just the way it is, that where it is evil, where it is wrong, without taking names right now, look at the world, open
Yeah.
your eyes wide. They are loud and they appear indomitable,
Yeah.
overwhelming. So that is why 100 Kauravas
Yeah.
and 5 Pandavas. The good is there. It is very mighty. But the difference in number is not that, oh, we have only 3 good qualities and we have 100 bad. No, no, no. It is softer. In this world that we live in, I don't know why it is. The whole Leela, as I see it, is to make that soft goodness of yours transcend and pitch itself. And that is the entire spiritual process. That within the world and within us, there will be this necessary contrast. You have to have the contrast.
Yeah.
If everything, I mean, just think about it.
Yeah.
The stories that we cheer the most, rags to riches, hero over villain, where that overcoming good, all our festivals,
Yeah.
Vijay Dashmi, all of it, Diwali, good over evil. So that's the whole point. So when you come back to Duryodhana, taking on from Dhritarashtra, that's quite funny,
Yeah.
that he starts speaking next. It's saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Is that at the onset, when wisdom comes into the picture, because Krishna is there on the battlefield, not yet in our Bhagavad Gita scene,
Yeah.
but clearly the evil, Duryodhana, can see Krishna there. As soon as that light is seen, the evil, whether outside or within, is going to become loud. And it is going to start barraging with this arrogance that you cannot even imagine, and always puffing up itself, always showing that it's mighty and great. So if you see the next few verses after that, right from verse number 2 to 11, roughly, Duryodhana starts, goes on, ranting and raving, first raving, then ranting, first, introducing to Drona all the various people. When you read it, we don't have time to go through each verse, but when you read it, you understand how idiotic is his whole stance. The man who has taught all of these since they were 5 years old to become the warriors that they are posing to be on this battlefield, he's introducing these warriors to him. So rubbish. I mean, think about it. When you are in the wrong, you'll start rambling around about with all nonsense and puff it with pride. Caffeine kick, which gives you that immediate high and then slumps you down, or the sugar kick. So literally, that is what he's doing over here. He is trying to hide his fear, his anxiety, his distress with this so-called arrogance. And we see Bhishma then, see, when the leader of the pack starts misbehaving,
Yeah.
the pack loses confidence. First and foremost, whoever were on Duryodhana's side were either completely like him, what is it, birds of a feather flock together. Very few, I think, were like that, apart from the Kauravas. But most were either through marital alliance, allegiance, or threat, or fear. Right now, see, we always go with the ruling party.
Yeah. Or the
It's
winning.
amazing.
Yeah.
Or the winning. It's amazing to see in politics also.
Yeah.
Whichever party takes over, people from the correct party will start joining them.
Yeah.
Or from it's just the way it is thing. So most of Duryodhana's team was not aligned to the cause of why Duryodhana was fighting. They were there just because. If you just look at all Bhishma, Drona, they had their allegiance to the throne, not to Duryodhana, what he was doing. So his team was already morally weak.
Yeah.
And when Bhishma saw that, Duryodhana was rambling on, and his rambling, which was completely riddled with insecurity, that's going to go down into the team that's behind him. And all will start. So immediately, Bhishma comes in with this conch, and he blows the conch to basically, for a lack of a better word, shut Duryodhana up. You see? So when he comes in with that conch, and because Bhishma has blown that conch, everybody gets confidence. Because imagine the whole picture now, everybody's staring at Duryodhana, and then suddenly Bhishma, okay, Bhishma is at least sane. He's all powerful. He's whatever he is. So that's a morale boost for that entire army, which would have gone off if Duryodhana had continued. And because Bhishma blew that first conch, when a conch is blown, it is an initiation. It is start of a battle. Because he blew it, not so much to start the battle, but to keep Duryodhana quiet, it is often said that Kauravas and Bhishma Pitama initiated the war.
Wow. And then I found it fascinating. I mean, there was so much, but like there are so many verses just describing not only just the sound of conch or the shape of and who had and the name of conch. Like, does it have significance to it?
So the names are quite interesting, but we wouldn't be able to go into them because they each have their own story. So, but it would be nice for our viewers to look them up. What does it mean? But just the whole description, what really stopped me personally in that whole conch description was Sanjaya's, who's supposed to be an unbiased Sakshi witness, his very clear description of the sounds of the conches. You see, the sound of the Kauravas' conches was loud. It was like each one is playing their own, tune. Like exactly as I said, nobody was there with a common cause. It's like there's one guitar on a different tune and there's one, drum on a different tune because all of them didn't even know, most of them didn't even know why they are there. They were just there. So it was not synchronized. It was loud. It was jarring. It was just ugly, like an orchestra gone really bad. Why? For two reasons. One, it wasn't coming from good intent. And second, most important reason is they were not aligned for the same cause. The cause only was unrighteous. You see? So that's very interesting how he's described. And then with a very deliberate softness, he's gone to describe the Pandava conches, starting with Krishna. Even the way he describes Krishna and Arjuna's entry into the battlefield is with such reverence, with such grandeur, with such glory, and such softness. That softness, if you're able to pick up tone, it is, you cannot miss it. And why is that? Why do their conches sound melodious? Why do those conches rip through heaven and earth and shake it up? Because truth, even if quiet, when it speaks deliberately, an animal will turn. And this is the truth. So that difference in explanation and all the words, and even like I said, all the Pandava conches that were mentioned, they were all earned. All of those people on the Pandava side were virtuous people who had earned their right as warriors, as king, doing very good things in their life.
Yeah.
And they all were coming together for one single cause of righteousness, which Arjuna seems to is about to forget right now.
Yeah.
But they all come together with that.
Yeah, let's move into what the chapter is about, right? The Arjuna's Vishad. But before that, what I found was when Arjuna said to Krishna, please bring the chariot in the middle. I want to see who all is in the Kaurava side, or I just want to see that side. And Krishna could have taken that chariot anywhere and placed it anywhere. If he would have placed it in front of, I'm sure Arjuna's reaction would have been totally different. But Krishna goes and places the chariot right in the middle of his teacher, Arjuna's teacher, which is Dronacharya, and his grandfather, Bhishma Pitama. And so that's when this whole Arjuna's emotions unravel right there. And so can we talk a little bit about that?
So the chariot. See, now we're going to see it in two ways. Okay. Like I said, so we'll first go to the highly philosophical aspect of that placement of the chariot, which is important because that is where the Bhagavad Gita teachings are aiming to bring us.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, all of us are a necessary admixture of the good and the bad. By default, as it were, we get roped into the negative more easily. It takes effort to align with the positive in us. But and this will continue to happen until blind Dhritarashtra is sitting on the throne. The blind mind is sitting on the throne. And the progeny, all the evil tendencies within us, are allowed to rule. This is going to continue to happen. It can only begin to shift when the intellect, the buddhi, the charioteer, the Krishna comes into the picture. And when it does come into the picture, we have to bring ourselves in between to make any transformation possible. We have to bring ourselves between the two forces. We cannot even fully align to start with the good. We cannot even fully align ourselves we should not align with the bad. We have to be able to consistently come in the center to have and soar up, that bird's eye perspective, and do what needs to be done in every aspect of our life to do what we are supposed to do. That's why I want a black and white dupatta today, that we are made of the dark and we are made of the white, the light. And there's this gold, which is the intellect. You see? We have to bring the intellect to be able to see both sides like Sanjaya and then make our decisions. So that's the highly philosophical reason as to why that chariot comes over there. To bring it down to what you were saying, that is what I meditate upon the maximum. And I also try to bring that part into my classes a lot. Whenever we take up anything, okay, I know we spoke about this before we even started this podcast when we were discussing on the drawing board. You had mentioned something, if I remember clearly, that Arjuna seems very arrogant when he is telling Krishna, like he's ordering Krishna, take it in the middle of the battlefield. Like, let me see who's up and about to fight with me. It's not arrogance. It's not Arjuna's arrogance that makes him say that. It is Arjuna's surety of why he's fighting the war. See, amongst the Pandavas, there were only two who were up and about to fight this war. One was Bhima, but Bhima's was all that anger. You know Bhima, right? He was that, I don't even know who to describe him as, but he was that, you've done me wrong, I'll show you. That full of might, there was not a lot of intellectual investment in him as to why he was angry. I mean, he was bullied the most by Duryodhana, right?
Yeah.
Since he was a child. So Bhima had no doubt he wants to fight this war. But Arjuna's decision or desire to fight this war came from a complete understanding of the picture. He was a mighty warrior, no doubt. But he understood, why is he fighting? Why am I fighting? And interestingly, when they were in that 12-year exile and 13th years incognito, Arjuna did the maximum preparations for this war. He did a lot of penance, lot of tapasya. He garnered, strength, internal strength, external ammunition from gods, all sorts
Yeah.
of gods. So he was fully prepared. So when he tells Krishna that take my chariot and let me see who is there to fight with me, it wasn't so much as arrogance or disrespect for Krishna. It was that surety that said, get me there. Okay? What you said now, yes, Krishna, the intellect, could have taken him very easily in front of Dushwasana, who had derobed Draupadi, the straw on the camel's back that started this war in the first place. Could have taken him in front of Duryodhana, who is the number one, or Karna. He could have taken him in front of any of these. But the intellect took him to his weakest link. Himali, like you rightly said, if that chariot was in front of Duryodhana, Arjuna would have blown that conch and said,
Right
let's
away.
begin, let's finish this. But as he starts finishing that side of the battlefield, his chariot in between the battle would turn towards the ones he loved. In the process of that battle, he would have faced his weakest link and he would have dropped there. In how many minutes would have the army been completely finished? In our lives, we begin things from our strongest prides, arrogance, whatever. But before you take up anything, understand where you could stumble and address that first, pad it up first. So when Krishna deliberately took Arjuna there, many people say it was so that the Bhagavad Gita could be given, so that Arjuna could have had that collapse. But whenever I look at it, from whichever side I look at it, to me, it is until I know where I am going to break, I cannot take up anything major in my life. I have to fortify that first. And the 17 chapters that follow after that breakdown is just to fortify his connection to his weakest link. You're as strong as your weakest link. You hit the weakest link and you're done.
Wow. And as you said, to see this person who's so powerful as Arjuna with brilliant mind, and he had done penance and acquired so many, like outstanding warrior. And yet, when he is in this position, even though it is righteous, the way it's described, his legs are trembling, his voice, almost like his body is shaking. He's not able to even move himself forward to take this war or, start the fight. And it's like how many times in our life we come to that. And I will tell you, as last 3 years, I was in hibernation and I'm just coming out. But my thing was that I'm doing so much healing work. I am trying to, and we talked about it, that whole chakra view. I'm trying to get out of this cycle of life and death. And I'm asking for liberation, or that's what my ask is. But yet, when unknowingly you hurt someone that you love, and at some point I asked myself, like, what is the point of me doing all this? I'm acquiring all this karma on me where I have to repay. And not only that, it's like daily things, like somebody said something to me and it sits in my mind and it weakens us in so many ways. So it's kind of just relatable to see that Arjuna, as powerful and as that great warrior, is still having that stress, overwhelm, anxiety as we would in our daily life.
So let me throw out a statement that I picked up, and I don't know why it stayed with me. I wasn't really studying the Gita or teaching it back in the day. And it comes so handy now that I am in the subject so deeply. It comes from that famous soap opera or what series, Sex and the City. I don't know whether you've watched it. It was my favorite when I had just moved to the US. In that, there's a very funny line that said, every shrink in New York has a shrink. And it stayed, I don't know why it stayed with me, it just stayed. I wasn't ever planning to get into the healer's chair or the teacher's chair or the yoga teacher's, none of it. I was just trying to make sense of my very front-loaded karmic chart when I was exploring these things and heal myself. So Arjuna, as you rightly have described him, one of the most capable human beings. On paper, one of the most evolved human beings. See, back in the day, they had this entire knowledge taught to them from the age of 7. As soon as they had that Gayatri mantra initiation and Upanishad ceremony, they went to Gurukul. So, but obviously they were taught this highest knowledge, Upanishads, along with all the material aspects of existence. So he knew it all. And up until this point, he was functioning as that evolved person and staying true to his training, staying true to his evolution and all of that. But when it came to his own problem, when it came to facing his weakest link, when it came to facing something that was directly connected to him, he tumbled. And this is what I think Vedanta in general highlights. It is these attachments, these ignorances, these, the darkness of the mind that inhibits us from being able to do what we are supposed to do. And that is where we get stuck. So if Arjuna was a counselor, if he was a charioteer to somebody in another war, very nicely he would have been able to narrate Krishna's Gita very beautifully to somebody else. But when it comes to yourself, if you are faced with that problem, are you able to implement it? And that is why the push in Sanatan Dharma, the push in the Bhagavad Gita is, do not understand these things intellectually so that you become an erudite scholar to teach others. Because rest assured, you, like others, are in this world. And to test whether you have understood it, rest assured, those problems are going to come in front of you. Are you able to then handle yourself? And Himali, you've been a very successful, I've been following you for years, a very successful counselor, healer, and all of that. And let me say this, it does not extract us from our lot in life. And it is okay. It is absolutely okay to stumble in our lives with the same things that we've successfully healed others on the same problems. And that is not a folly at all. In fact, that is human nature. You see, it's easier because all our senses are outbound, all our organs of action are outbound. It's easier to address the world, but it's hardest to address ourselves. So it is absolutely natural. But if somebody is seriously on the path, and especially in the position of healing, teaching, counseling, guiding, what I have used for myself and what I highly encourage those who are on similar paths is really sit with who you're healing and what you're healing. And let that become your inspiration. Let it go down. It's not I am healing this person or I'm teaching this person. Let how they have overcome what they have overcome through what you have taught them or through
Yeah.
what you have transmitted to them become your inspiration, your manual.
Yeah.
So that when you are faced with a similar problem, you look and say, with what I have taught, with what I have done, this person has overcome. I need to apply it to myself.
Yeah.
So the general rule is try not to teach what you haven't practiced, experienced, or at least tried to understand. See, even when Vyasa told Ganesha to write, and that whole thing we discussed in the first
Yeah.
episode, Vyasa's condition was don't write it until you understand it.
Mm.
So, as we are studying to heal, to teach, whatever it is, try and incorporate what you're trying to go out there and do for the world into your life. And rest
Yeah.
assured, those things will come into your life.
Yeah.
We overlook them fast, fast.
Yeah.
You see? So, Arjuna failed because an opportunity to practice this, what he had studied, hadn't yet arisen. And it arose now, and Krishna made full use of it, took him right where he would suffer and he would doubt and he would question. And that is why we have the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. It's like analysis paralysis, right? Like he's in that space where he is like, I can't move. I am not able to. How can I fight the person that taught me everything? How can I use that against the teacher, the guru? And how can I fight with the grandfather, grand uncle that has raised me, that has taught me worldly things? And so, being in that position, it is hard to make that decision. And I like the fact that Krishna is still telling Arjuna in terms of to stay in the righteous path. What also I see, and that was one thing I think in early on in my healing for myself, of course, is that I want healthy detachment. Because we get so wrapped up into this attaching ourselves onto, all these labels that we have as a mother, as a daughter, as a sibling, as a wife. We have these strong attachments, or even friends. It's so easy to let go. It's so easy. And then the more attachment you have expectations. And then sometimes those are not met. And so you're not able to see clearly. And so that's what I took a little bit out of that the strong attachment that Arjuna had with Dronacharya, with Bhishma Pitama, that it is so hard to fight, even if the cause is for the righteousness.
So if you look at it, Himalina, I'm going to go off. See, before I got to teaching the Bhagavad Gita, my journey of healing, like proper concerted healing, must have started when I was 15,
Mhm.
where I went to all sorts of modalities. There's not one modality. If you have any, please, I'm willing to try that I haven't tried.
Mm.
The EFT, the Reiki. I became master in all of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Past life regressions, future life, whatever else, whatever is there, name it. I've done it. So I'm going to shift a little bit out of what the Shastras essentially say, but I want to get into something that has been my understanding. I'm sure you're going to agree with it quite because you've done similar things or more. I'm going to shift out of that just to explain this, what you have brought up over here. Very important to understand this. You agree, I'm sure, that we are here for evolution, right? And you agree, I'm sure, especially from what we've just discussed, that we are here to transcend, fortify and transcend our weakest link, to address those attachments. Correct? Now, our weakest links, if they presented in people that we didn't care about,
Yeah.
even a distance as our people who come to us as clients, okay? And you must have experienced this for sure. You are able to guide them so objectively. Yes, you care about your profession. Yes, you have that altruistic nature that you want to help. That is why you're in the profession.
Yeah.
You want to help as many. But there is an elbow room distance between you and them. And that is why what you say works very easily. And you do it with finesse. They're returning and returning clients. For me, I had to actually say whatever I teach will be in course format because I cannot be with you forever. You learn if you can. If you can't, then I'm not your teacher or I'm not your, therapist or whatever. You can please find somebody else. So you can have that. But the thing is that, and it will never be tested. Your weakest links will never be tested in people that you do not care about. What I have keenly observed and putting together all the healing modalities and everything that I have done for the past more than 3 decades, I would say, is the karma. Please take this in the right mind. The karma that we are supposed to face, the lessons that we are supposed to learn, and the situations we are supposed to transcend will only and only come in your nearest and dearest scenarios. They will only come there. Whenever I go deep into understanding karma and see one thing I really highly encourage everybody who is on the path, please be open. Yes, you need to be with one line of thought. Like we discussed the 3 schools of thought, Dvaita. You need to be one primarily, but you need to be open to be able to put it together. You need to be open to understand everything that comes together. So what I have understood is that my biggest battles, my biggest lessons, and everybody who I watch around me is never with some stranger or never with somebody. It's come with my closest people. And that's where, like Arjuna, I have been stuck. And unfortunately, in some relationships of my life, I did not have Krishna. I did not have the Gita standing beside me. And I've done exactly what Arjuna would have done had Krishna not been that. And I regret it. Do I regret it? But I pass it off as my karma. So Arjuna being paralyzed there highlights that whatever in your life you're trying to run away from, those dark tunnels, that is where your work is. You could put it aside for this lifetime. But again, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. You will not get from grade 5 to grade 6 unless you pass grade 5 examination. So in this life, this is your examination. Look, you don't have to go far away looking for spirituality. You see, the number one thing for anybody who comes on the spiritual path, look at your life. Who's your father? Who's your mother? Who's your siblings? We were discussing something right before this podcast we recorded. That the message coming into you and you were completely baffled. That's where your syllabus is. How are you going to handle that message? You see, we are leaving all this. It's sad and shocking to see that we are leaving what our karmic curriculum is in front of us. Arjuna is suggesting that to Krishna and saying, let me go to the mountain. I'll go with a begging bowl, mendicant. It's better I'll die. Is that lesson gone? Absolutely not. And all our lessons are miraculously hidden in things that our mind is attached to. Watch it. You see in your own life.
Is there any verses that you feel so connected to in that where Arjuna really says or feels that feeling of dejection?
I think one of the biggest verses that I feel, he completely unravels his plight is when he starts towards the end of this chapter, if we go.
Because at some point he even justifies whatever he's thinking.
So that's interesting. That is very interesting that first he is just mourning. Okay, for the first portion when he starts speaking, he's in shock. So it's so beautiful to see how it progresses. He starts with confidence, surety. I want to fight this battle. I want to see who's there. Then he sees, he's completely shown the mirror, and there it are all his loved ones. That completely unnerves him. He starts spiraling. He starts spiraling so fast. And then once he reaches rock bottom, you see, this is what we do. We spiral first. We reach rock bottom, and that rock bottom is actually not the truth. Because we are caught in that emotion, we believe that to be the truth. And then the mind, dear blind mind, will start justifying why it's okay to be in that rock bottom. So the verses that follow his first spiraling is justification. Amazing, astounding justification. And he gives, I know you you were bothered by some of those verses, you know,
Yeah,
that
oh,
the
yeah.
women will become corrupt and the caste systems. We'll get into all of that as we move on, because how much can we cover in one? That's why I
Yeah.
say everybody should be in a proper Gita class. You see,
Yeah.
I'm hoping the point of this podcast is to intrigue interest enough for somebody who's never touched the Gita
Yeah.
to actually go and join a class near them,
Yeah.
you know, or one way or another try to understand it. So the human mind, it spirals and then it starts justifying. And he's using all these very strong things. See, immediately you had never read
Yeah.
the first chapter till 2 months ago, and you've studied the Gita for a while before that.
Yeah.
And the first questions you asked me was like, I'm really bothered about that, the women going astray and the caste system and, you know, like all of that happening. The reasons that Arjuna gives, justifies with, are solid reasons, Himali. For somebody who does not have a working intellect at all, is completely mind driven, when they read the Bhagavad Gita, and I know such people,
Yeah. I
they
do
will
too.
not go past chapter 1 because they'll say, this is a warmongering text.
Yeah.
Whatever Arjuna said are the right reasons, and that is what we were doing. That is what you spoke to me before this podcast. This message has come from a loved one about a loved one. You see?
Yeah.
So the mind will say, and you're stuck.
Yeah.
The mind will say that these are the right reasons. So whatever reasons Arjuna gives in following his spiral, please understand, look at them both ways. They are solid reasons. And when we are standing in the battlefield, we should take those reasons. War should not be the first line of defense. You know, there's that lovely quote which says, listen to understand, not to respond. Okay. So that pulling back to understand. So Arjuna's reasons also are not rubbish. They are valid reasons. I keep saying, if the same reasons Duryodhana had gone to Krishna with, these are the reasons I don't want to fight. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Krishna would said, yes, these are the true reasons. You cannot fight. You should not fight. Put down your bow. But for Arjuna, what he was set out to do, all those justifications, as right as they were completely wrong. Because he was trying to make the wrong right, you see. So it's very, very important to understand that justifications will be the first line of defense for when you are deciding to do something. 10 to 1, if you are not intellectually driven, if you're not taking that bird's eye perspective, if you're not in Sanjaya's seat, being an unbiased witness, your mind will justify your spiral with reasons that seem so noble. You could be put in a robe and put on a pedestal. But that's where, again, you need the intellect to understand, though the reasons are sound, let's see whether they fit in this context or not. So yes, what follows the spiral is justification, correct justifications, wrong context.
And we were talking about the last verse.
The final concluding verses of
Yeah.
chapter 1, from 40 to 47, you start seeing Arjuna again collapsing. So you see how the thing is.
Yeah.
Okay. Just look at it carefully. It's so fascinating. How can people miss chapter 1? Okay. He starts with surety.
Yeah.
He's faced with reality. He slumps into complete dejection. He tries hard. He tries hardest to pick himself up with justification. Innately, he knows that none of what he's saying is making sense. And so from that pinnacle that he's brought himself to, with all the wise wisdom that he's trying to belt out to, remember, Narayana himself, Krishna, when he realizes it's not getting him anywhere, the last concluding verses, 6 odd verses, find him back to where he started, to that absolute slump. And he says there his mind has made up his mind that this is not going to work. What I believe is true. My justifications are also true. And very graphic descriptions by Sanjaya, very graphic descriptions, my mouth is parched, my throat is dry, my hands are trembling, my knees are trembling, I've got horripilations, and my bow, my Gandiva, is slipping off my hands.
Yeah.
And the final description of Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra was, having said all of this, having portrayed what his physical state is, he puts down his bow and arrow and says, I cannot do this. So we leave chapter 1 with Arjuna having tried everything to justify all the wrong understandings again of Arjuna's blind mind in this scenario, failed miserably, and he collapses on the chariot floor. And even these verses, the last concluding verses, absolute paralysis.
Yeah.
Don't we all get into it with chote episodes of our lives? Forget the big episode. We are not able to think straight. We are not able to speak. We become dry mouth. We have butterflies in the stomach. We have, we clench. So all of that is a very natural. I mean, how beautifully Vyasa has portrayed it. And it does not only happen on a Kurukshetra battlefield. If you look at it closely, it's happening minute by minute by minute. Your child has a fever. All of this, a high fever you cannot explain. All of this starts happening. Your lose a job immediately. To this level we go, to this level, and I cannot. We fall, and I'm sure you've seen this, and I have seen so many who fall there and unfortunately cannot be resurrected. And that's the end. That's the end of any effort. That's the end of any trial. If you asked this in the last episode, if it is destined, and I don't say it's destined, it's your own conscious effort through millions of lifetimes or thousands or how many ever there are, I don't know. It's your own conscious movement towards the truth that at that right time, light will shine. And I have to bring this in because we discussed this before the podcast. The book Eat, Love, Pray. When Elizabeth Gilbert, she falls on the bathroom floor and just prays, please help me. I can't go on with this. And dramatically, the life changes. In an instant, the life starts changing. Of course, there were many things. She had to go through many continents, many practices to come to a point where she could start helping others. But that rock bottom place is all important. Is it destined that the Gita or light will come? Yes and no. If you have worked enough through many, many episodes of these births and deaths, when, like how I put it, when karma is leveled, the light will come. And my suggestion or my insistence always is, if it's come to you, even casually, and you are in that position, grapple it to your soul. It will pull you out. It will pull you out. The Bhagavad Gita has the power to pull you out.
And I've seen it time and time again. You ask and it's given. It's already given. As I called for Bhagavad Gita to come into my life, and it showed itself. You called me out of the blue and asked me to be part of it,
And why it showed up is because you were with it. You were with the subject. And you were with the subject through 3 years of harrowing dejection, not knowing which you were trying. So that little bit of trying, that effort has to be there, you see, and that sincerity has to be there. Right now, we are taking up Bhagavad Gita as a Pilates class. It's I can't even tell you how many Bhagavad Gita classes are there in the world. Do it. I mean, it's good that you're with the subject, but if you are really, really sincere about dramatically changing your life and getting it under control, please treat this as a manual of life. It's going to be that for you. So what happens at the end of each chapter, there is a kind of a chorus. It repeats, but what changes? So it basically sums up what we've been discussing. So it tells us that what are we discussing? The Bhagavad Gita. It is a distilled form of the Upanishads that can be actually used in our day-to-day life to understand the Upanishads ultimately. It is the knowledge of the absolute, Brahman, Atman, Om, that you are, at least from the lineage that we belong to, you are that. So it's telling you about that. And it is also a science of yoga. It is giving you the means and methods to recognize that within you.
Yeah.
So many philosophies tell us the philosophy, but how do we get there?
Yeah.
You see? So it affirms that while it is telling you about your absolute truth, it is also giving you the methods, the yoga, the practices to be able to get back to that. And then it announces the number of the chapter and the name of the chapter. And it says, this chapter now ends. Because in the olden days, there was no books, it was a verbal communication.
Yeah.
So you had to inform that this is where this chapter ends. Now we'll get into the next chapter. So yeah, we can definitely, and we should chant it. In fact, what we should chant is the last verse, I mean, the refrain, and then go back and chant the first verse.
Yeah.
Or at least say it. I think we should keep the Sanskrit out a lot because a lot of people don't understand, especially where you are trying to put it. But because we always go back to the first to make sure that we are not stopping here. We are going to continue.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last refrain is Om Tatsatiti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Arjuna Vishad Yogo Nama Prathamobhyayaha. And then the first verse, what did it say? Assembled on the sacred field of Kurukshetra, desirous to fight, what did the sons of Pandu and mine do, O Sanjaya? So we should leave the chapter remembering, fully remembering where it began with the blind mind that is faking arrogance and putting the blame on somebody else for having come to fight this war, and talking to a witness to affirm what they think is right and what they're doing is right, and not so much as to evolve and do differently.
I would just love to sit with this for a while, for days, I think, to just soak this information in.
Thank you.